Hi, friends, and hello, everybody. Thank you for being here for the operator panel, which features four of the preeminent leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs of the Pacific Northwest startup ecosystem, who, as Pablo really kindly teed me up, have basically been building, scaling companies here anywhere from 15 to 30 years. So, Pablo, it's the over 40 panel. Everybody, how many knee replacements have you each had? I'm really delighted to get to be here with all of you to hear about your journeys as operators and, most importantly, like true wave makers here in the ecosystem. And most importantly, one of the cool things reflected in this panel is a lot of firsthand experience and witnessing of the evolution of this ecosystem. It has changed a lot over time, and so really excited to hear about all the different muscles that have been developed for each of you individually and in this community too. To start out, maybe we could begin with some intros. If each of you want to take about 60 seconds to describe maybe your entry point and journey into the innovation ecosystem here in Seattle, starting right here on my left with Jonathan.
May I borrow your mic? Thank you so much. Really, you're doing great already, so thank you. Quick 60 seconds. Born to a single mom. I don't pattern match at all to sort of the typical startup CEO. I feel like that I'm more lucky than good. My entry point into technology was simply, seriously, sounding cliche, following my passion when I was about 13 or 14, when others on the panel were doing really, important, cool things like being awesome at tennis, or other pursuits. I was geeking out writing games on the Apple II computer. That tells you how old I am. I think I'm the oldest person on the panel at the age of 57. This was when the computer game and video game industry was just nascent. There was no career in computer games, but I sold computer games professionally when I was 13 or 14. The buyers of these games didn't realize I was just a kid, but I made great money doing it. Never thought of it as a career. And then my parents got divorced when I was graduating from undergrad, and I decided I had nothing to lose, so I started a computer game company when I was about 21. And we quickly scaled to about 43 people. We were bought by Electronic Arts. And still at that point, my Chinese mother was quick to say, will you get a real job? So then that's when I went to Microsoft, was there for 12 years, worked with Laura Rudiman back in the day. She's totally right. None of what we do now makes sense. And got the bug after a 12-year career at Microsoft, learning how that side of the house looked at things, how we managed, how we thought about HR, all of that stuff. Got the startup bug and started doing startups ever since. And I think I'm on my probably 6th or 7th one. More lucky than good.
I love it. Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Colacurcio. I also have a very different background in that I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family, but if some of you recognize my last name, Colacurcio, they ran strip clubs. So different type of entrepreneur. Oh, there's a fan over there. Different type of entrepreneurial endeavor, but you certainly absorb some of the business side of things as a kid. First-gen college grad, so my parents didn't go to college, and I did and was really passionate about government affairs. So after college, went to DC and was working on Capitol Hill, met a woman at a dinner party, and she said, you gotta come to the Bay Area. This was the dot-com boom. She's like, come work at this company. So I figured, what the hell, and I did it. And the dot-com crash happened just a few months later, but I had gotten the bug. So from there, I worked at a couple of startups in the Bay Area, and eventually, born and raised here, felt the draw of the Italian meatball to come home, and worked at a couple of companies, of course did my stint at Microsoft, and very shortly after that was lucky and privileged to have the opportunity to co-found Smartsheet, which went public in 2018. From there, as a Seattle native who loves our iconic brands, I took a spin at Starbucks HQ, really wanted to have an opportunity working for Howard Schultz, had just heard, other than his Sonics decision, he was an incredible leader, such a great orator and communicator, and as someone who grew up in marketing and communications, that was just an incredible opportunity to learn. And from there, that's when I found the Syndio opportunity and joined forces with the other co-founder who has since left, and have been with Syndio now for 6 years.
I learned something about you. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name's, do you want the whole arc or just the how we got here? A minute. Yeah, trying to be. Okay. So, Kristen Hamilton. I grew up in Canada. After undergrad, I took a job as an analyst for a company I won't name, and I hated it so much that I quickly jumped over that. I got to Seattle by smuggling across the northern border, not joking, and got a job not telling anybody that I wasn't able to work in the United States, but brought it up afterwards, got a lawyer, they got me my green card. Very nice of them, but really kind of fell or accidentally slid into the tech industry because I worked for a consulting firm that built for large companies their distribution channel strategies like IBM, how do we reach small and medium business? This is a really long time ago. And then a guy that I went to school with and I said, you know, there's this e-commerce thing and it's really happening. He lived in Vancouver, I lived in Seattle. He's like, we should do like this e-commerce thing. Amazon's doing it. And I was like, okay, I'll do this with you if one, we change the business model, we make it into a small business focused, not consumer focused thing, and we do it in Seattle, not Vancouver. Glenn Ballman, who some of you probably remember, and I started that company. It was called Mega Depot, the Internet Superstore. We did get a cease and desist from Jeff Bezos, because he was apparently going to be the Internet Superstore. We ignored it. But we did change the name eventually to Onvia. And like, I was not intent. I was an accidental entrepreneur, and an accidental entrepreneur 3 times, because I did 2 other companies after that. Worked some time at Microsoft also, which got me experience about how to be an enterprise. The most useful thing was then how to sell to enterprise. So I worked there twice, did digital media stuff when the iPod was first coming out, and then took a complete left turn in my career and went into international education and international development in a nonprofit, moved to the East Coast for a while. Huge learning experience, and ever since then I came back to the for-profit model, but recognized that I really want to be impact-oriented. So as a kid, I was like, let's get rich. We did take Onvia public in the year 2000, which was a crazy, crazy thing. But actually, essentially, since then did impact-oriented for-profit businesses, which I love. And now what I'm doing is helping startup founders become great CEOs, because all of us didn't know what we were doing the first time, and constantly we're learning from other founders, and essentially that's what I have found my true passion and purpose is, like, how do I help other founders on this journey learn those hard lessons and those hard things and to achieve their dreams. That's what I'm up to.
So I don't really belong up here, because really all I've done at the 4 startups I've been at is pick the right founders to work with. So I've never really had the big idea and carried it through, but I fortunately found good people to work with. And the first one, the way I got into it, I went to high school in Seattle. One of my best friend's older brother ran a software company, and this was back when software came in boxes. And there was something called a brochure, and the brochure would tell you what the software was going to do for you. And this friend said to her older brother, hey, Kirby's a pretty good writer. He could write some copy for you. And so I wrote copy for John Keister over the summer, one summer in college. Never really thought about it. He paid me like $100 or something, if that. I never really thought about it. And then I graduated college in '96 and moved to Manhattan to start my career in advertising. And John Keister called me and said, hey, you're a pretty good writer. We're starting an internet company. Do you want to come back and help us? And so I came back and was the 6th employee at a company that was called GoToNet. We actually did AI, semantic web search. And we took it public the next year. And 2 years later, I woke up and was running marketing at a $4 billion company. And I had no qualifications. And I did almost everything wrong. And I immediately hired myself a boss and got out of there. But that was the start of a career in the internet, and I kind of never looked back. I did another startup with those guys, and then I had 2 CEO gigs at venture-backed startups, and we sold both of those companies. I always say those were much less, they were missing some zeros on the end of those exits. So I went back to picking the right founders to work with, but this time as an investor, and now run Ascend, which is a pre-seed fund focused on AI native vertical software and horizontal AI in Seattle. So that's been the journey, and like I said, I'm just feel fortunate to be around these real entrepreneurs.
I'm going to say he does belong here, but he did go to the dark side. But he's a good guy on the dark side.
This is true. You can't fully trust me anymore.
Well, to that point, one of the neat things about all four of you on this panel is, you began your careers very much entrepreneurially, and each of you is doing something right now that is incredibly entrepreneurial. You're founders in new ways, whether it's media or startups or venture. Since it's Seattle Tech Week and this is Seattle Venture Day, could we start maybe just like having you go back in time to your first entrepreneurial foray and reflecting on the biggest thing that has changed about this city for entrepreneurship since that time to now? It can be a complaint, it can be something you're happy about, it can just be sort of an interesting evolution. Just think back to that first experience of being an entrepreneur here in Seattle, and what has changed the most for you and your experience?
Yeah, I have one. I remember, I think because I started so relatively early, I was incredibly frustrated when I started out that there were no events like this. And that networking was harder yards. It was much harder, and that when there was a networking event, and there were some wonderful organizations that were already existed. Laura's organization, her predecessor Susanna Malarkey, was doing God's work, running that organization. There was NWEN, but every time you went, it was more corporate-y. I couldn't really relate to it. I felt like I wasn't really part of the more corporate-y seeming people that were there, and so that, frankly, was one of the origin points of GeekWire, which has become something much broader, of course, beyond at this point. But that, I think, is changed, is that there's a lot more support. And I have other thoughts too, but I'll let others jump in.
I'll jump in on that. So it was 1996 when we started on VIA. Again, we definitely couldn't get the thing funded in Canada. But then when we came to Seattle, there was a law firm, Venture Law Group, that you might all remember. Some of you remember. Jeff's like, yep. Jeff was around. Mike was there. So our lawyer was like, let's introduce you. But there were like 3 investors in Seattle. 3 big funds, right? And the 3 big funds are still here, and we love them, but there was nobody else. And the level of conservatism, again, I think the more conservative, the more north you go. Like Canada, no one was gonna fund us. That ecosystem has evolved. This ecosystem, I also is very lonely. Like the people I went to school with, like, you're doing what? You're going to be an entrepreneur in tech? There was nobody around. There was no ecosystem. You couldn't fill this room with entrepreneurs. And importantly, then I think what's changed is, like, think about now Ascend, Flying Fish, like on and on. There are, PSL, MVL, there are a lot of now, the ecosystem has been evolved significantly because of I think the willingness of people to take a bet on this ecosystem by bringing funds here. Like the funding ecosystem is way better here. I'd say we have a long way to go in consumer, like we're in kind of a B2B town more, but we have incredible support networks, and we can actually raise money here now. We raise money from the Valley, to be honest, except for Greg Gottesman, who slid in and has started at Madrona and got into the OnVia deal at the last minute. He's not here to make fun of, but like he started his career same time as we were starting our company. And we took a little bit of Seattle money, but like back then, it was too conservative. And I'd still say we have a ways to go in Seattle compared to, like, you go to the Valley, it feels different, but it's getting so much better. It's dramatic how much it's changed. Again, it's been over the course of 25 years.
I'm going to go quick. I just think the biggest difference from 96 when I started to now that I can see is AWS exists, and Google, Apple, Meta, all of these companies have massive engineering headquarters here. So I think the biggest difference is, I think maybe Jeff said it earlier, like it used to just be you're waiting for someone from Microsoft to start a company. And now, not only are entrepreneurs spinning out of all of these technology centers of excellence, but you can hire people from those places too. And I've just seen that to be really the biggest difference in the types of companies and the diversity of the types of companies and founders that we've seen in the last 20 plus years.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the talent pool has changed in an incredible way. And I also think when I started in technology, not even as an entrepreneur, but as an employee at a tech company, I was almost always the only woman in the room. And I think that's changed in a really positive way. I think we're seeing a lot of changes there, and you see that in this room today based on, the comparison of if we were sitting here 15 years ago.
So one of the things that I think does not get talked enough about along those journeys and timelines you just described were like the things that sucked, and maybe less about the region, but more about how hard it is to build, scale, attain success via IPO or acquisition, which every single person on this panel has done. Along that path, could you describe just like an oh shit moment, like a really tough moment, and it can be from either the current the current company you're running, or it can be one of your early journeys, and if it ties in some way to how you benefited from the community or the talent pools or the ecosystem here to get through it, even better. So your biggest oh shit moment that you're willing to disclose with Taylor Soper in the room, logging notes and taking pictures.
So my biggest oh shit moment, you could tell how oh shit it was by how quickly I jump in to talk about it. The first time I got to run a startup, it was actually a battlefield promotion, and I'd been brought on to be the chief revenue officer of an ad network that had raised $18 million in venture capital. And then the CEO, Matt Hewlett, I always say, did me the great good service of moving on to another job and leaving the door open for me to take over the company. And so I did that, but I did that during a time where we were pivoting. And the pivot didn't go as well as one might have hoped initially. And I had to lay off 2/3 of our staff. And I had to tell the board I was doing that, and I had to recapitalize the company. And I'd been on the job for probably 3 months. And I was very fortunate to have great investors, but in particular, Bill Bryant from Draper Fisher Jurvetson, who came into the office twice a week and sat next to me and helped me manage through the pain of the layoffs, manage through sort of rekindling a fire under the remaining folks, under the founder, the true founder, Greg Harrison, who was the CTO, and just I'll never forget, that him showing up in that way, I think is a very Seattle thing, and I think it's also been a lesson to me as an investor in how I want to show up for our companies. So horrible experience. Don't recommend it for anyone. But if you got to go through it, having Seattle folks around you, I think makes a difference.
To be honest, to answer the spirit of your question, which is what sucks, I'll be dead honest and say that I cannot pick one single oh shit moment, because there are so many, and it doesn't matter where you are in life, it doesn't matter how many exits you've had, it doesn't matter what your net worth is, whether you're well capitalized or not, there are always going to be oh shit moments, and there are sort of two buckets of oh shit moments. Should I be saying oh shoot or something? Because I don't want to be bleeped out on a video or something. Okay, thank you. We're okay. So the two buckets of these bad moments have to do with business operations and the actual product implementation. There's a ton of that. But then there are also some personal kind of personnel ones that are also incredibly, can sometimes be soul destroying. And so I would sum it up and say that I have a cousin who is a special forces guy, or was, he's retired now. And when he launched his startup, I said to him, hey, listen, this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. I'm telling you, whatever crappy day that you had at work, whatever argument you got into with your wife, this is even harder, and it's sustained. And he goes, oh yeah, whatever, Jonathan, I was Special Forces. A year later, he was like, you are not shitting me. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. And here's a guy that's jumped out of airplanes and all that stuff. So I would underscore that depending on where you are in your journey, it is incredibly hard. Nowadays, I would represent that other than, a specific moment is I remember when I had started Picnic.com, that's Picnik, and we had at our zenith 60 million unique users a month. We were one of the most popular, we were more popular than Adobe Photoshop in terms of just the usage and hours spent on it. And I remember the CTO of Adobe called me into his office to have a special conversation. And basically his message at the time, this is a different, several CTOs ago, and I won't name him, but he sat me down and I'm thinking that he's gonna talk about acquisition. And he goes, Jonathan, we're gonna crush you. So just give it up. So that was kind of like what I would point that out as a singular moment. Yeah, and so we crushed them. No, we didn't. Obviously, we didn't crush Adobe, but we ended up having an incredibly cool exit to a competitor of theirs. So that's the equivalent of giving them the finger. So.
Yeah, sure. So when we at Syndio were raising our Series A, we had 3 verbal agreements that term sheets were coming. They had to have their Monday partner meeting, and then Monday was the day the world shut down with COVID, and the Dow took its biggest drop ever in the history of the Dow. And so I got 3 phone calls that basically were like, we're gonna pause. We don't know exactly what we're gonna do. And it was an incredibly terrifying moment because we had worked for 6 months to get to that point where we had 3 verbal agreements that we were gonna move forward with funding. And so the team sat down and looked at each other and we thought, well, what are we gonna do? And so I ended up going back to a bunch of the investors that had previously given me a no and just said, you liked me enough to talk to me. Do you have anyone who you think might be interested? And I got a couple of referrals, and one of those referrals ended up alongside Voyager, who we pulled back in to co-leading our round. And I pitched her from my minivan because school was out. I had 6 kids at the time, and they were all running wild, and it was the only place where I could go and it could be quiet. And that's almost reasonable today, but if you think back to that time, number 1, we didn't pitch over Zoom. We pitched in person. It was the first Zoom pitch I'd ever done. Number 2, I'm sitting in my car, and this was an incredibly important meeting. But just having that fortitude and resilience and persistence to keep going. I have a group of founder, CEO, female friends, and that's the thing that we text each other the most is just keep going, keep going, keep going. You just have to keep going. There's always another hand to play. There's always another thing that you can do if you have the pain tolerance. But it was incredibly terrifying and ended up working out. That investor that I pitched came in to co-lead the round.
I agree with Maria that it's like, and what Jonathan said, it's like there's so many holy shit moments that I consider it like, I've said this before, it's like a game of whack-a-mole at the fair, like the fuzzy little guy comes up and all day you're just hitting these crazy problems and holy shit moments. So I'll talk about like my biggest one when I was the most afraid, and there have been several holy shit moments, but we went public on March 1st of 2000. The NASDAQ was at an all-time high. It was a dot-com bubble was just very big, about to burst. We didn't know that. And it was exciting, as you can imagine. We were 29 years old. My co-founder and I, we went on a road show. We went and rang the bell. And then pretty much very soon after that, something weird happened. We went on vacation, oddly, together after all that time together in Hawaii. And we're like eyes on the ticker, because, you're kind of like, this is crazy. And the market started doing this weird thing, and we're like, wait a minute, what's happening? So the market, if you look at the stock chart, it's quite funny. It goes like this, and it goes like this. Like literally, the all-time high was like 10 days after our IPO. So it was a precipitous fall. We were now a public company, and the market was falling. We were telling people on the roadshow it's going to take us 5 or 6 years to get profitable. No problem. That happened. Then, as you remember, in that era, there was no Sarbanes-Oxley. I don't know if you guys know it. So this is before.
Oh yeah, I remember those good old days.
GoToNet was in that graduating class, and so there were things that on the roadshow our bankers were doing that we were kids. We're like, I guess this is normal. Apparently not. And Frank Quattrone, a king of Wall Street who had been in our office, was like, he went to jail. So I thought I was going to jail. Like that's the moment of like, holy shit. And I remember specifically, there were news cameras that came to our office. We were on over on Lake Union. And they came to our office and they're like, apparently the market's falling. What are you going to do? You know, as they would. I don't know why we would have taken this interview. And I was the one whose face they pointed the camera at. And I was like, yeah, we have it completely under control. We know what's happening and we have a plan. And then we subsequently talked to our entire employee base in a large room, and it said sort of the same thing. And the truth was we did not. So I think about the lesson, and I had good advisors who helped me at that time, and the Seattle community was great to me. It's that the moment of reckoning was like, never step across that line of integrity. It doesn't matter if you're a public company and you need to say something for the face of a camera or to our employees. It really came back to bite us, because they had these Yahoo chat rooms in that day, and our employees, we were telling them something wasn't true. And it was like, it's been a lesson that I've carried forward ever since that time. I was in complete holy shit mode for weeks, but I allowed that to influence me to not be authentic, to say, guys, we don't know what we're doing. We are going to have to figure it out, and we're going to need your help. And so the arc of that to my last company and the type of culture that I built, that we had a holy shit moment there too, and guess what? Everyone rallied. So for me, that's a big defining story that changed who I am.
That's amazing. I mean, I want to pick up on a thread that I think 3 of 4 of you touched on in your responses to that prompt, which is the fact that every day, can bring a lot of challenges, and this is not for the faint of heart. Jonathan, you described, was it a Navy SEAL, right? Who was, right? Who was more or less, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. I know in the room before this panel, I spoke with a lot of folks who were like, well, I'm here because I'm thinking about starting a company, doing this crazy thing. And I guess if you were to kind of, think about the highs and the lows and give your best but brutally honest advice around who should not start a company, what would you say? Who should not take on what the 4 of you have taken on over the past couple of decades?
I'll go quick again. Someone who is doing it for the outcome should not do it. Meaning, if you think at the end of the journey you're going to feel happy or fulfilled, or you're going to feel like you've won something, or your life is going to change fundamentally for the when you sell the company, it's actually shocking, and this is maybe just for me, but it was shocking to me how empty that felt. Like, you need to do it because you like coming in and fighting every day and working with a team and going and talking to customers and building the product and doing it all over again. Like, that has to be, you have to be that person. And I wasn't. It's why I wasn't a great founder, is I wasn't that person. I thought that the goal was to win the game. And then you win the game and you're like, oh, that's all that happens? Like, the best thing about startups is that the reward for work is more work. And so you have to be someone who thrives on like earning the other level of work and the next challenge and the journey. And if you're just motivated by the outcome, then it's probably not for you.
I like that. I'll try and be quick too. There's 2 things that come to mind. One is if you can sleep at night with the problem that you're looking on existing, if it doesn't keep you up at night, and you're like, this problem just needs to be solved. If you don't have that, then you should not start the company, because it's that kind of guttural, intrinsic motivation that you have to draw on when all the shit goes sideways. And for everybody who looks so successful today or in the past or in the future, if you get them in a room and they're honest, they've had these absolutely awful, terrible, miserable, I want to quit times. So even they're having them today if they aren't saying it. So it's very much you have to draw on that intrinsic motivation. Your problem needs to be solved. Yes, don't feel comfortable sleeping at night unless it's solved. The second is, if you want the option to quit your job, do not raise venture money. This is very important. Once you raise money, you cannot quit. You don't need to raise venture money. You can also start a company and not get it funded by venture, but Like the second company that I don't talk about that much, someone was about to write me a check, and I realized, this is not the company. Like, I don't have that feeling in my stomach. So I said, don't write me a check. Because once they write me a check, with integrity, you have to persevere through it. And so think long and hard about that and realize that you can't quit once you raise money.
If you're a pessimist, don't do it. You have to be such an optimist. Glass half full, always another hand to play. I say that all the time to my team. You've got to be an optimist, and you've got to be super persistent. So if you're a pessimist, not for you.
Really great comments. Personally, I love it when there's a great outcome and it rains money, and I freaking love that. But I am in agreement with Kirby that you can't be in it just for the outcome. Secondly, I would advise that you not do it if you are the kind of person that feels entitled to a certain kind of outcome. And here are just sort of different examples in the life cycle or journey of an entrepreneur. So whether you're raising funding, you cannot take it personally if an angel investor or a firm says, you know what, we're going to respectfully pass. Suck it up, keep your chin up. It's not personal. You're just maybe outside their. It's not their jam. You're outside their. They're just so. But if you are the kind of person that takes stuff personally, you ain't gonna go very far. Further along in the life cycle of the company, inevitably, and in fact, there's some really great data. I think that's the book that was. Gosh, I can't remember the name of the book, but it was written by one of the co-founders of like Match.com, and this person wrote a book about what a lot of the data tells us on social media about who we are. I'll think of it. But there's some really great data that if you don't have haters, then you're actually not good. So, and I will say, and hopefully this doesn't sound wrong, but every time there have been haters. And by haters, I mean just somebody out there on Twitter just going, oh, this product sucks. You are actually, it's an honor to even have that opportunity for people to hate on you, because that means they know about you and they care enough to actually say something. But if you're maybe thinner skinned and that bothers you, no bueno, you can't do it. So I'll leave it at that.
Amazing advice, and maybe I'll kind of flip sort of to the mirror image of that, is if you think about some of the people that have really lifted you through the good, through the bad, and whatnot, mentors, therapists, thought partners, co-founders, colleagues. We got a room full of, the next generation of great innovators here in Seattle. Who are some names and personas that were important, that were part of your, like, maybe personal board of directors that got you through the good and the bad of those journeys?
Switch up the order. Well, I'm looking at one of the guys right there. Jeff Ventris was both a prior board member and by the way, people who have been really impactful in your life, from their perspective, when I'm on the receiving end, they don't realize it. And so this may be the very first time I'm saying this to you, Jeff. If I didn't say it to you after our tenure together ended, which is that sometimes people can give you like a nugget or two, regardless of whether they're you're formally your mentor or not, and it can completely change the trajectory of your company. In Jeff's case, it was a long, sustained number of things that a really amazing advice that he gave me during actually the aforementioned picnic, but I've always carried a lot of that stuff with me. But he was actually the first person to say, you know what, Jonathan, in my observation, and he's done his 10,000 hours, right? People are always late. Most, if not all, entrepreneurs are always late in bringing on a real CFO. Do it now. You're already kind of late. I'm like, God, you're right. And then once we did that, I mean, a whole host of options opened up. Secondly, I would say that don't be afraid to reach out, to even overreach. One of my mentors is John Stanton, who you all know what he does. I know nothing about baseball, but he knows a lot about business. And I've appreciated how much that friendship has offered me throughout the years. Sometimes you just need someone objective who kind of cares about you enough, who's invested in your success to say, you're effing up, so stop it and do this instead. So.
So my list is long in Seattle. I'll talk about Michael Schutzler, who's not here because he's currently like paddling his way across an ocean, which he does now. He's the head of the WTIA. He also started at many companies, has run also public companies in Seattle. I had done Onvia, and I was not the CEO of Onvia. I was very much the co-CEO with Glenn, but I was thinking to myself, I'm going to start another company. And I said to him, I'm really good at number 2. Like, maybe I don't think I'm quite ready to be a CEO. I have more to learn. And he said, Kristen, no one's ever ready to be a CEO. You're ready. Stop saying that. And it was at coffee. I could tell you exactly where I was sitting. And it just sat me up in my chair. And I was like, holy shit, that's true. And I've subsequently done that for other people, but I've told him this, he knows this. That changed everything for me, because I would have continued to say that, and I know that sometimes women do that. And I was like, damn, I'm in this trap. I'm doing that thing. TA was a CEO group with me when we were in that process. He always gave me good advice, always made time for me. I mean, there's people in this room, like Mike Fridgen has been that person for me. Dan Shapiro has been that person to me. Hey, Dan, I'm pitching. Can you come over and hear my pitch and pretend you're a VC for me? I mean, the community in Seattle has been incredible. I have get emotional about it, actually, in terms of how indebted I am to, and how much I love to contribute back as well, too. But we need this ecosystem. We need each other. And that is a differentiator I didn't mention in Seattle. I think we have a much more loving ecosystem in Seattle than other places. And I'm really grateful for that.
I mean, I'll just say, for myself, probably one of the most important people in my whole entrepreneurial journey has been my wife, Allison. We got married in 2000, where I was already almost done with my first startup. But she's always been a voice of reason. I've been able to talk to her like a business, but she's the only one in the family with an MBA, which I think helps. But she's been a partner in every way, and I think that's hugely important if you're doing this. It's certainly not a requirement, but it really helps. And I mean, I remember it was 1998. We had just gone public, and we were like $9 a share. And I was getting recruited to go run marketing at Alta Vista. And if you remember Alta Vista, which many of you maybe don't, but that was the hot shit search engine startup down in Mountain View. And our stock was flat, and everyone else's stock in the category was through the roof, and we were just chugging along. And I go, Allison, I think I should look hard at this job. And she's like, don't do it. Don't do it. You've got too good of a thing going here. You guys are more than just a search engine. We had a lot of other assets. And she's like, John and Russ, the guys you work for, they're just incredible, and you owe them staying. And our stock went from $9 to $280 in the next 2 years. And so I probably would have jumped if it wasn't for my wife. And then now that I'm running the fund, same thing. We go for walks all the time, and there's stuff I can't talk to my LPs about. I can't talk to all my friends in venture about. I can't talk to my founder friends about, our portfolio founders like Mark. There's just stuff I can't talk to anyone about except her. And she's there, and she'll call me on my bullshit, and she's a great thought partner. So as I said, I'm very lucky. If you can have that, it's a huge superpower as an entrepreneur.
I am so +1 to that. That was exactly what I was going to say. My husband is, if you don't have a supportive partner in this journey, there is so much they have to pick up the slack. There is so much that they end up having to do on the home front. And sometimes when you come out of a bad period, which we've all sort of talked about are frequent, there's a lot of moments where you're there, but you're not there. You're there, you're present, you're physically there, but your brain is so not there. And I've had him take over conversations where I was just clearly not participating and sort of cover for me in different ways. And I just think you have got to have a really supportive partner if you're going to take this leap, because there are going to be so many times where you're not available, or you are available but not available, or where you're just back processing on something and you can't quite get out of it until it's done. So you've got to have that support.
Well said. I just want to actually acknowledge 2 female mentors that I've had, 2 women who are still incredible business leaders in the community. and hopefully deliver a little bit more value in terms of what they taught me. So one of them was Charlotte Guyman, who was my manager at Microsoft. She was a business unit manager. She's now on the board of Berkshire Hathaway, is kind of what she's doing nowadays, working with Warren Buffett. The other one is Lisa Brummel, who was also another manager. And to this day, both of them used to sort of talk about this concept that this was at Microsoft when we were working together, that if you're going to have a great career, you should be sort of the amalgam or the composite of all of these really great managers that you've had. Like you should take away a little, almost like there's an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where there's some alien, that touches, Picard or something, and it becomes a little more Picard-like, and you touch Riker, and you become a little bit more Riker-like. And so that's what I did after both Charlotte and Lisa told me that. And to this day, I hear Lisa Brummel's voice when it comes to a really tough HR, a difficult conversation with an employee where there's difficult performance feedback. She was the master of giving that feedback in a way that was respectful and on point, high signal to noise ratio. I hear Charlotte Guyman's voice every time. I remember being in meetings with her and little old me, little Jonathan, when I was 25, 26, and I was meeting with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen and Ted Turner. We were building a bunch of interactive TV stuff, and Charlotte had those guys eating out of the palm of her hand. She was it didn't faze her that she was a tech person and not a studio mogul, and observing her, and at the time she was young too, she was probably in her early 30s, to have that kind of confidence. I will always I imagine her every time I'm in some sort of meeting with somebody who's a big mucky muck. So sample, be alien-like in how you sample your best managers and take after them.
So cool. Choose your managers well, your investors well, your advisors well, and your spouses and partners very, very well. I know we've got 1 minute left, so last lightning round question. What can and should every single person in this room do to help build this startup ecosystem in Seattle to be stronger? What can everybody in this room contribute, take action with today to support Seattle and to support the Seattle entrepreneurial community?
I think win. I mean, the more successful startups we have, right, the more we raise the profile of our city. So the more Seattle-based entrepreneurs, the more Seattle-based companies that have great exits, that go IPO, that become profitable, enduring businesses, the more people we employ, the more talent we cultivate, the better we do. So I think win, help others win, and figure out as a community how we can keep that flywheel going.
Maybe we end on that note. I want to thank all four of you not only for winning, but paying it forward to this ecosystem so beautifully. Thank you for paying it forward today. Thank you, guys.
And thanks to you, Julie. You did a great job.
Yeah, great job, Julie. Thank you.